20 years ago, a man made a decision that would change his life forever. He wasn't sure how it would unfold, but he knew in his heart that adopting a young girl in need was the right thing to do. At the time, the girl was just a child, someone with no family to turn to, lost in a world that seemed too big for her. Her past was filled with sadness and loss, and her future seemed uncertain. But this man saw potential in her. He saw someone who needed a chance, someone who could find a better life if only she had the right support and love. This man had never thought about adoption before, but life had a way of pushing him toward it. He had his own struggles, having lost his wife a few years earlier. Though he had a job and a steady life, something was missing. He felt an emptiness that he couldn't fill with work or material things. His heart longed for something deeper, for a way to make a real difference. That's when he came across her, this little girl with no home and no one to care for her. He saw her picture on an adoption flyer and something clicked. He felt an instant connection, almost as if the universe had placed her in his path. Adopting her wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't about just filling the empty space in his house. It was about making a lifetime commitment to raise her, to care for her, and to give her everything she deserved. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew that it wouldn't be simple. Raising a child is never easy, and he didn't take the responsibility lightly. There were forms to fill out, interviews to attend, and waiting periods that tested his patience. But through it all, he never once doubted that he was doing the right thing. When the day finally came to bring her home, he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This little girl, who had been through so much in her short life, was about to start a new chapter with him. She came into his life with nothing but the clothes on her back and a few belongings she'd been able to carry. The man was determined to offer her everything she needed, a safe and loving home where she could grow and thrive. But it wasn't just about providing food and shelter. It was about giving her the love and emotional support she had been missing. At first, their relationship was quiet and a bit uncertain. She was shy, withdrawn, and scared of this new world she had entered. It wasn't her fault. She had been hurt, neglected, and abandoned before. She didn't know how to trust, and she didn't know if she could rely on this man who was now her father. For the man, it was just as challenging. He didn't know how to fill the role of a father at first. He had never raised a child on his own, and though he had the best intentions, there were moments when he didn't know what to do. But one thing was clear: he wasn't going to give up on her. Slowly, they began to build their relationship. At first, it was small moments of connection. A warm meal together, a comforting hug when she was scared, or a kind word when she felt sad. The man knew that building trust wouldn't happen overnight. It would take time, patience, and understanding. He had to learn how to be the father she needed. It was a journey, but one he was committed to. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the girl started to open up. She began to smile more, to ask questions, and to share her thoughts. She still had fears, but now she had someone to help her face them. The man, too, grew in his role as a father. He learned to be patient, to listen, and to guide her in the right direction. His love for her grew every day, and he realized that the emptiness he had once felt was starting to fade. This girl, this child, was becoming his world. The act of adoption was much more than a legal procedure. It was a deep emotional commitment that neither of them had fully understood at the time. In the beginning, it was just about doing the right thing, about providing a safe home. But as time went on, it became clear that this act of kindness would lead to something far greater. It wasn't just about giving the girl a new start. It was about the two of them creating a family, finding healing together, and learning what it truly meant to be loved and to love in return. Over the years, their bond grew stronger. The man became not just a father, but a mentor, a protector, and a friend. He was there for her when she needed someone to lean on, and he offered guidance when she faced tough choices. The girl, in turn, learned to trust him completely, something she had never done with anyone before. Through the act of adoption, they found each other and built a family from the ground up, a family that was created not by blood, but by love, commitment, and mutual respect. In the end, the decision to adopt her turned out to be the best decision he had ever made. What began as a simple act of kindness grew into something much more powerful than he could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about giving her a chance, it was about giving both of them a future, together. And as he looked back on those early days, he knew one thing for certain: No matter how difficult the journey had been, it had all been worth it. Growing together, as the years passed, their relationship blossomed in ways neither of them could have imagined. What started as a hesitant connection between a father and his adopted daughter soon became something much more profound, an unshakable bond of trust, love, and mutual understanding. The little girl, once quiet and withdrawn, slowly began to show signs of healing. Her new father provided her with not only a stable home but also the security she had longed for, something she had never experienced in her early years. Despite the scars of her past, she found solace in the warmth and patience he offered. However, it wasn't a smooth journey. There were times when her old fears crept in. At school, she struggled with fitting in, often feeling like an outsider. Her classmates were curious about her background, but the girl, unsure of how to explain her past, often stayed quiet. She wasn't sure how to navigate the complexities of friendships, and sometimes she would retreat into herself. This was especially difficult for her father, who felt that he was losing touch with her despite all his efforts. But he didn't give up. He knew from the start that being a father meant being there for the long haul, even through the difficult moments. In these challenging times, he made a point to be present, reminding her that no matter what, she was never alone. When she came home with sad eyes after a tough day, he would sit with her and listen, really listen, without judgment. Sometimes all she needed was someone to hear her, someone who understood the pain she carried even if she couldn't always express it. His unwavering presence gave her the courage to face each new day, even when the weight of her past seemed overwhelming. Their evenings together became a ritual of bonding. He would help her with her homework, not just offering answers but showing her how to think critically and solve problems. Over time, she started to enjoy these quiet moments, realizing that learning wasn't just about schoolwork. It was about growing as a person. He encouraged her to be herself, to take pride in who she was, and most importantly, to never feel ashamed of her past. Through his words, she began to see herself in a new light, not as a victim but as a survivor with the power to shape her future. As the girl entered her teenage years, their relationship was tested again. Adolescence brought with it confusion, rebellion, and uncertainty, but instead of growing apart, they grew closer. Her father, knowing how delicate this time could be, took extra care not to push her away. He wasn't always perfect. He struggled to understand some of her teenage frustrations, but he kept trying. They would talk late into the night about her dreams, her fears, and her ever-changing sense of self. She began to share her aspirations with him, things she had kept locked away. She wanted to go to college, to become someone who could give back to the world just like he had done for her. Her father, proud of her ambitions, did everything in his power to support her. He knew that his role wasn't just to provide for her financially, it was to be her biggest cheerleader, to help her see her potential even when she couldn't see it herself. Together they started planning for the future. He helped her choose a college, filled out applications with her, and even visited campuses together. She wasn't just his daughter anymore. She was a young woman, ready to carve her own path in the world, and he was honored to be a part of it. But it wasn't just about the milestones like going to college or finding her career path. What mattered more was the way they had learned to communicate, to support each other through the emotional ups and downs of life. The girl, who once struggled with trust, had learned to trust him fully. She now knew that he would always have her back, no matter what life threw her way. In return, he had learned to be patient and understanding, recognizing that healing is not linear, and that every setback was simply part of the process. As she reached adulthood, their relationship became one of friendship as much as it was of father and daughter. She was no longer a child who needed constant protection. She had grown into a strong, independent young woman. But even so, she would always turn to him for guidance, for wisdom, and for reassurance. Their bond had matured, but it was no less deep. He saw in her a reflection of his own journey, how despite the odds, they had both overcome obstacles and found happiness together. One of the most significant changes came when she began to understand the depth of the sacrifices her father had made for her. As she matured, she began to appreciate not just the material things he had given her, clothes, food, and shelter, but the emotional labor. She realized that his love for her wasn't just a simple act of kindness. It was a lifelong commitment, one that required constant effort and devotion. She also began to reflect on her own journey, the difficult years, the painful memories, and the healing that had taken place. The girl who had once struggled with feelings of abandonment and confusion now stood as a confident, compassionate young woman, ready to face the world. And none of this would have been possible without the steady, loving presence of her father. Together they had weathered the storms of life, and in doing so had forged a bond that nothing could ever break. Through all their ups and downs, their love for each other remained constant. They had learned that family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes it is built on shared experiences, sacrifices, and the willingness to never give up on each other. As they moved forward, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, stronger than ever. The ultimate repayment as the years went by, the young girl who had once been so lost in the world grew into a determined young woman with a sense of purpose and independence. She was now in her 20s, having faced the challenges of adolescence and carved out a path of her own. The man who had adopted her 20 years ago could see the incredible transformation in her, a transformation that had been fueled by his love, his guidance, and his unwavering support. He had watched her grow from a frightened child into someone capable of facing the world with confidence, and he couldn't help but feel proud of the woman she had become. But there was something he had never expected. His daughter, now an adult, was about to repay him in a way that would forever change their relationship and their lives. It wasn't in the way many would assume. There was no check for a large sum of money or a flashy material gift. Instead, her act of repayment came in the form of a life-changing gesture that spoke to the depth of their bond, a gesture that was both simple and extraordinary in its significance. It all started when she learned that her father was struggling in ways he hadn't let her know. Over the years, he had always put her needs first. He had worked tirelessly to provide for her, to make sure she had everything she needed to succeed. He had always been the pillar of strength, the one who had never shown weakness. But now, in the quiet moments when he wasn't busy taking care of everything, she saw the wear and tear that age and life had placed on him. He had been pushing himself for years, and though he never asked for help, she knew that he was tired physically, emotionally, and mentally. It was in those moments of realization that she understood what she needed to do. Her father had given her everything: a home, love, education, stability, and above all, a sense of self-worth. Now it was her turn to give back. The love and gratitude she had always felt for him couldn't be expressed in mere words or gifts. She needed to show him just how much he meant to her, how deeply she appreciated everything he had done. The first step in her plan came when she decided to pursue her career in a way that would directly benefit him. After years of studying and working hard to create a successful future for herself, she chose a path that would not only allow her to fulfill her own dreams, but also give back to the man who had shaped those dreams. She started a non-profit organization focused on helping children from broken homes, providing them with the same kind of love, stability, and guidance she had received growing up. This organization wasn't just a job for her. It was her mission, her way of continuing the legacy of kindness and care that her father had instilled in her. But her repayment didn't stop there. She knew that her father had always been a quiet giver, someone who rarely asked for help even when he needed it the most. So she took matters into her own hands and began working on a way to ensure that he could retire comfortably and without worry. Her father had spent his entire life providing for others, often at the cost of his own well-being. She wanted to change that. She used her skills, her education, and her growing influence to create a financial plan that would set him up for the rest of his life. She didn't just want to ensure his financial security. She wanted him to be able to relax, to enjoy his life without the constant stress that had been a part of his daily existence for so long. She arranged for investments, savings, and a small business that would provide him with a steady income stream, enough to live comfortably without worrying about the future. It was the least she could do for the man who had sacrificed everything to give her a future. But the most touching part of her repayment came not in the material things, or even in the financial security she provided. It was in a letter she wrote to him, a letter that spoke from the heart. In it she told him how much he meant to her, how his love had shaped her life in ways that words could never express. She thanked him for never giving up on her, for always believing in her even when she couldn't believe in herself. She wrote about how his quiet strength and unwavering support had been the foundation upon which she built her life. and how she would forever be grateful for the man who had adopted her all those years ago. The letter, which she placed on his desk one morning, became a turning point in their relationship. For the first time in years, the man allowed himself to feel vulnerable. He read her words, tears coming to his eyes as he realized the depth of the love and gratitude she had for him. He had always believed in her, but now, seeing her success and understanding the impact of his sacrifice, he saw how much she had truly grown. He had been the one to give her a new life, but in this moment, he realized that she had done the same for him. Her act of repayment wasn't about the tangible things. It was about the emotional fulfillment they both found in the shared experience of giving and receiving love. The bond they had built over the years had come full circle. She had repaid him, not with gifts or money, but with a life well lived and a heart full of gratitude. And in that moment, the man knew that every sacrifice he had made, every sleepless night, every struggle had been worth it. She was his greatest gift, and now she was giving him the peace and joy he had always deserved. This act of repayment was the final chapter in their shared journey, but it wasn't the end. It was a beautiful reminder that love isn't about what you can give, but what you can share. How two people connected by fate and love can change each other's lives forever.